The female warden delivers meals to the prisoners every day, but she has never seen their true faces. Because the prison holds only 3 seconds, level psychic, interstellar big shots. Yet severe psychic pollution has degenerated them into fluffy creatures. The majestic white lion Major General, the dazzlingly gorgeous bird of paradise, the agile black panther crown prince, Fluffy Tucson, and the 9-tailed red fox. Each one is a ruthless character who kills without blinking. Yet only toward her do they act coquettishly and desperately seek cuddles. Her name is Smiley, who accidentally transmigrated into a cannon fodder, infertile, useless female from the book. To survive, she ran to a remote star and became a warden. Just as she stepped into her office, a piercing alarm suddenly sounded. Smiley's room flashed with a glaring red light. The alarm seemed to come from the deepest part of the prison, carrying a strange echo. She hesitated for a moment, but ultimately pushed open the warden's office door and took a step into the dark corridor. Just as she was about to enter the detention area, the butler had somehow already appeared behind her. He wore a crisp black uniform, his white gloves especially conspicuous under the dim light. "Miss Smiley, here is the area where the masters are detained." Smiley shuddered, finally fully awake. "I'm sorry." She hurriedly apologized, but the butler shook his head. "No need to apologize, this has nothing to do with you. You will be responsible for delivering meals to them from now on. But remember this well, no matter what their reasons are, you must never open the cell door." Then the butler handed her a thick file. "This contains the key points of prison management. I have marked the important items in red." Before Smiley could react, the butler vanished like a ghost, silently and without a trace, leaving her standing there alone, her round almond eyes filled with confusion. It turns out this seemingly eerie prison is actually a secret base for detaining interstellar 3S level psychic powerhouses. In this era, to fight against the Zerg invasion, humans have evolved into Beastmen forms. However, the special pheromones released by the Zerg are like a poison, stimulating Beastmen into falling into terrifying psychic frenzy. Once it triggers, they completely lose their humanity, leaving only the most primitive beastly instincts. And because the prison is so dangerous, Smiley ended up landing this cushy job as the warden. Meanwhile, in the prison area, a majestic white lion spoke in human language. "Changed wardens again? Don't know why. This time, it's actually a female." A large bird nearby was lowering its head, hiding its beautiful tail feathers. Its muffled voice carried a few threads of sarcasm. Right then, sitting cross-legged on a throne-like chair, Tucson flicked his fluffy tail. "Heh. Even those useless males before couldn't stand it. Now, there are still females daring to come. I'll see how long she can last. I bet 3 days. Then I'll bet 1 hour. This time, it's a female. You all better know your limits." The white lion in the first cell opened its mouth. The noisy sounds in the prison also gradually quieted down. In the warden's office, Smiley looked at the thick file. "Every day at a.m. The prison area must deliver meals on time. Please strictly adhere to each lord's dietary habits." This is the first red highlighted content in the file. Smiley checked the time. There was still over an hour until 9 o'clock. She quickly walked to the kitchen and began preparing breakfast. Not long after, Smiley took out from her spatial pouch the heavy meal boxes and headed toward the detention area. The moment she stepped into the detention area, Smiley was stunned by the scene before her. This was no prison. It was clearly a presidential suite of a 5-star hotel. In the double height space, apart from that semi-transparent blue energy barrier, there was no trace of any prison cell to be seen. Cell number 1's nameplate had the 3 letters Hansen. Through the barrier, Smiley saw a massive, white lion lazily lying on the bed. Its fluffy white fur shimmered with a soft glow under the light. When those sapphire-like eyes looked over, a deep and gentle voice sounded. "Thank you, Warden, for the meal." Only then did Smiley realize, this elegant white lion before my eyes is Hansen himself. When mental collapse becomes severe, Beastmen will regress to their primal form. From the looks of it, Hansen's mental collapse is already very severe. The scene in cell number 2 made Smiley stop breathing for an instant. A bird of paradise, nearly half a person tall, was preening its feathers. Those orange-yellow gradient plumes were like flowing sunset clouds. Just as she was gazing, captivated, the energy barrier suddenly became completely opaque, accompanied by an arrogant, cold snort. Uncultured female, mind your eyes. Smiley awkwardly put down the meal box and slunk away. Arriving in front of cell number 3, Smiley leaned in curiously to observe. The pitch-black cell held only the flickering blue light of a robot. She couldn't help but mutter softly, "Is anyone even kept here?" As soon as the words left her mouth, a cluster of green, glowing eyes suddenly lit up in the darkness, scaring her so much she nearly cried out. Then a panther, pitch black all over, elegantly paced up to the light screen. Those coldly gleaming eyes looked down on her from above with disdain, making her break out in goosebumps involuntarily. Smiley rubbed the goosebumps on her arms, her scalp tingling as she put down the food and ran towards the next spot. Haha. So easily scared. A teasing laugh came from cell number 4. Smiley looked up and was instantly charmed. She saw a round, chubby Tucson shaking. With long whiskers, it bared its teeth at her. Although the little creature tried its best to look fierce, its fluffy fur and round, sparkling eyes only made it appear even cuter. Seeing the name Jiangsha on the doorplate, Smiley fought back the urge to pet it. Gently set down the meal box. The prison here, though quite spacious, currently only housed 5 adults. She walked to the last cell, and her eyes lit up again. Inside, a fiery red 9-tailed fox was soaking in a hot spring. Amidst the swirling mist of the hot spring, 9 fiery red tails flickered in and out of view in the water. The fur at the tips of the tails shimmered with a satin-like luster. The red fox lazily propped up its head, its narrow, elongated eyes slightly upturned at the corners, gazing toward the doorway with a hint of playful amusement. The new warden? That low voice was like aged fine wine, making Smiley's ears burn involuntarily. "My name is Smiley," she replied softly, her gaze drifting unconsciously to the name on the doorplate. Yanis. The name was truly fitting. Wasn't the one before her a living, breathing femme fatale? When those words, tinged with laughter, "What a lovely name," reached her ears, Smiley only felt her ears itch even more. Flustered, she set down the meal box and prepared to leave. "This is your breakfast. I'll take my leave now," she said hastily, almost fleeing in panic. On the way back, she passed through the original detention area again. Smiley always felt that several pairs of eyes were fixed on her. Each gaze scrutinized and probed, staring at her. It was unnerving for no reason. When passing cell number 2, the heavy protective door remained tightly shut. However, the white lion in the first cell was elegantly using its claws to hold utensils while eating. Those deep blue eyes looked over gently and gave a polite nod. After returning to the office, Smiley looked up Hansen's file. Only then did she learn that he was actually the Empire's youngest Major General. She thought of the white lion in the prison and couldn't help feeling it was a pity. Finally, she opened the file again and continued reading. The manual was densely packed with records. Each character was like a hypnotic symbol. Unconsciously, she closed her eyes. Right at that moment, a small cyan-green mushroom quietly sprouted from the top of her head. This mischievous little thing hopped and skipped through the door and headed straight for the detention area. And at this time, Mutant had taken human form. He was the one among them with the relatively lighter mental collapse. While having breakfast, he suddenly thought of something and chuckled. This new warden is a bit silly, but her taste isn't bad. She knows how to appreciate this young master's beauty. Hearing this, Jiangsha also became interested and turned to look at cell number 5. Yanis, did she say her name was Smiley? Yanis answered with an impatient look. Didn't you hear it already? Why ask? He had just averted his eyes. Then came the sound of plates shattering from inside the prison. followed by Mutin's anxious voice. General He, what's wrong with you? Hearing this, the other prisoners instantly stopped eating. They walked to the door, looking toward cell number 1 with concerned expressions. What happened? General He seems to have suffered a more severe psychic collapse. He's now torn apart the bed. Upon hearing this, everyone's heart sank. Among all of them, Hansen had the most contact with the Zerg and the battlefield. Therefore, his psychic collapse was also the most severe. Inside cell number 1, the White Lion's eyes were blood red, frantically tearing apart everything around him. The metal bed frame twisted and deformed under his sharp claws. The butler robot had long since retracted into a metal ball and rolled into a corner. Hansen had completely lost his mind. His snow-white fur was splattered with blood. Yet, as if unaware of the pain, he repeatedly crashed into the protective door, emitting a heart-wrenching, dull thud. If this continues, he will die. Mutin's voice trembled, helplessly watching his former comrade in arms self-harm. Are we just going to stand by and watch him crash himself to death? Can we contact the Empire's rescue team? Jiangsha couldn't help but speak up. Just hearing the sound felt cruel to him. Yanis's voice turned cold. Naive. From the moment the Empire sent us here, you should have understood. We have long been abandoned. After saying this, he turned to look at cell number 3. Crown Prince, don't you think? I'm right. Yi Ming's dark green pupils contracted. He looked towards cell no. 1. There were no words. Yet his silence also wordlessly explained everything. This was the fact. The cell fell into a sorrowful, low atmosphere. They dared not look for long. And so, no one noticed. A green mushroom hopped onto the White Lion's head and burrowed inside. A dozen or so seconds later, the mushroom seemed to have grown quite a bit. It emerged from within the White Lion's brain. Its color had turned red, perfectly blending into the White Lion's blood-dampened fur. At the same time, the White Lion's crimson-red eyes also slowly regained a bit of clarity. But perhaps due to excessive blood loss, Hanshi only felt dizzy and muddle-headed. Blink. The heavy, massive beast-form body crashed to the ground. The red mushroom on his head was flung several meters away. Dizzily, shook its mushroom head. Then, once more concealing its merits and reputation, quickly slipped away through the wall. The heavy thud of the fall echoed within the prison. Jiangsha, all her fur standing on end, trembled and covered her eyes, shouting, "Mutin! What happened to General He?" Though they dared not see with their own eyes, everyone understood that given Hansen's current state, this episode was likely dire. Mutin, who hadn't dared to look directly just moments before, now turned around immediately upon hearing the sound of the fall. "General He, can you hear me?" Mutin's voice was tight. As a scion of an aristocratic family, he had always been arrogant and proud. Yet he held immense respect for Hansen, who came from the slums. This was the first time Mutin had seen Hansen in such a wretched state. Seeing Hansen completely unresponsive, his gaze shifted to the red button by the door. Without hesitation, he pressed it. In the warden's office, Smiley was having a sweet dream. Suddenly startled by a piercing alarm, she jolted upright in bed. The management manual under her head clattered to the floor. A mechanical voice coldly announced, "Cell 2, emergency assistance requested. Warden must arrive within 5 minutes." Clutching her pounding chest, she stared at the flashing red alarm light. All drowsiness vanished instantly. Smiley hurried to the depths of the prison block. The scene before her made her gasp in shock. Cell 1 was a complete wreck. Shocking bloodstains still remained on the floor. The White Lion that should have been inside was nowhere to be seen. A thought involuntarily rose in her mind. Could it have escaped? This thought sent a chill down her spine. But remembering the rules in the manual, no matter what happened, she absolutely must not open the cell door. Suppressing the worry in her heart, she decided to check on Cell 2 first. Seeing Mutin in human form, a flash of stunned admiration passed through her eyes. Smiley hadn't expected the bird of paradise's human form to be so strikingly handsome. Nevertheless, she snapped back to attention and asked, May I help you with anything? Muten saw her dazed expression after she noticed him. His face was full of disgust. Go open cell number 1. Check on Lord. He's conditioned. Smiley almost laughed in anger upon hearing this. She thought to herself, this guy is a lunatic, right? Just looking at the state of the prison cell, she suspected the other might be having a mental breakdown. In such a situation, opening the door and going in would be seeking death. But after all, it was her first day on the job. Smiley continued to maintain a polite smile. Sorry, Lord Mu. We generally don't allow opening prison cell doors. Muten Feng actually knew this. But thinking of Hansen's mental breakdown, he couldn't help but take his anger out on the female in front of him. He threw the unfinished meal box out through the window. How about this, then? Having you clean outside the cell isn't too much to ask, is it? Smiley gritted her teeth in anger. But remembering her purpose for being here, she replied, okay, and turned to leave. Not long after, she returned with a robot. Even through the blue light screen door, Smiley could feel Muten's face turning green. Female, how dare you deceive me? She pursed her lips slightly, an innocent look appearing in her eyes. What's wrong? Didn't Lord Mu ask for cleaning? I meant for you to clean, not a robot. But I brought it here so it can clean. So isn't that me cleaning? Nonsense. Muten Feng gritted his teeth, his face stinking with anger as he stood up from the chair. As the sole heir of the Mu family, one of the empire's 4 great noble houses, no one had ever dared to provoke him. Yet this female in front of him looked petite and delicate, but was outrageously bold. The laughter from Jiangsha next door echoed throughout the entire prison. Muten was so angry that his mental energy was on the verge of collapse. He could only furiously tell her to get out. Smiley didn't expect Muten to be this furious. She sighed, wiped a couple of times with the rag, then left with the robot. Seeing this, Muten snorted coldly. At least that female put on a show and wiped a bit. That way, his pride was somewhat preserved. On the other side, Jiangsha saw this and felt a mischievous urge. So he casually pressed the emergency button in his room. Back in her office, Smiley hadn't even warmed her seat. Seeing the flashing alarm, she couldn't help but rub her forehead. These adults really know how to make trouble. Then she brought the robot and returned to cell number 4. Looking at Tucson, she always felt a strong sense of incongruity. Like a child pretending to be an adult. But there was no helping it, this kind of animal was just too adorable. Smiley only felt her palms itching a little, wanting to try touching that layer of fur to see how soft and thick it really was. Jiangsha sensed that the female's gaze was somewhat different from those in the past. This female's eyes seemed to hold a strange fondness. Life in the prison cell was very boring for Jiangsha, so teasing the warden became his pleasure. Snapping back to reality, he sent the meal box out. Smiley took it and couldn't help but praise. Amazing. It's all eaten clean. Jiangsha was originally thinking fiercely about arranging something for this female to do. Hearing this, his round face instantly grew hot. This female really has a sweet mouth, even praising him for eating a meal. However, he did not forget the purpose of this visit. I want another bowl of rice. No rice, just meat. Deliver it within 10 minutes. 1 minute late, and I'll ring the bell to annoy you every day. After hearing this, Smiley retracted her earlier assessment of him as harmless. Jiangsha can be quite a handful when he acts up. To not exceed the time limit, she hurried all the way. Finally, right at the 10-minute mark, she brought the meat over. Smiley kept panting heavily. Her skin was very fair. Under the light, it gained a few more hints of pink, fair with a rosy glow. Even her lips seemed flushed, adding a few more strands of vivid color. Jiangsha glanced at her lightly and said awkwardly, "Consider yourself impressive. You completed it in 10 minutes. Since I have completed Lord Jiang's request on time, then where there is punishment, there should naturally also be reward. You must promise not to press the emergency assistance bell again today." Upon hearing this, Jiangsha had no choice but to nod in agreement. Afterwards, Smiley thought of the anomaly in cell number 1. She immediately raised the question to Yanis. Lord Yan, I'd like to ask what's wrong with Hansen. Yanis shook his head. Hansen's condition isn't good. He had a mental breakdown today and lost his mind. Now receiving treatment in the recuperation pod. Smiley fell silent for a moment. She looked at Yanis, thinking of the few in the prison. Besides Mutin, who can still shapeshift. The others all seem to be this severe. Perhaps soon there will be another. An ORC in the prison losing their mind. And when truly losing their mind, it actually means they won't live much longer. Thinking of Hansen's deeds, she searched on the StarNet. She felt some regret and pity. She said thank you to Yanis and left. Yanis thought the new warden was quite interesting. Mutin and Jiangsha, you two better not drive her away so quickly. Jiangsha glared fiercely at Yanis with a greasy face. You mind your own business. Don't use all those fox tricks on that female. Fox ORCs naturally possess charm skills. When they activate it, they can make people enter a dazed state, completely turning into puppets for them to command. Yanis did use it on that female, but she regained clarity in just a few seconds. It was completely beyond his expectation. Even the highly skilled Hansen back then took over 10 seconds to break free. Thinking of this, his laughter grew more unrestrained as he murmured in a low voice. Truly interesting. For a while after that, the emergency bell didn't ring again. It was almost lunchtime. Smiley went to the kitchen early to take a look. The kitchen robots are still working methodically. Every procedure is strictly controlled. However, the uniform selection of meat is a bit monotonous. Aside from salt, there aren't many seasonings. Even Smiley finds it too bland while eating. She checks the time and decides to make a stir-fried green pepper with cuckoo beast. Then simmer quack beast soup. Add some nourishing medicinal herbs into it. Finally, put in a few red dates. The flavor is sweet and rich, quite good. The robots pack the meal boxes for several adults. Smiley also packs 2 lunch boxes. One is for herself. One is for Hansen. She contentedly places these lunch boxes into the spatial pouch, delivering meals to the several adults on time. The healing pods in this world are very powerful. In just 2 or 3 hours, Hansen reappears in the prison completely unharmed. But Smiley still notices that the white lions too. Front paws have significantly sparser fur, even revealing pinkish skin underneath. But at least he survived. She raises a smile and asks with concern, "Is Lord He all right?" Hearing such an address, for a moment, it gives Hansen a feeling of being in a different lifetime. He is no longer that major general on the battlefield. His gaze falls on Smiley, and he nods lightly. "Thank you for your concern, Warden. I'm fine now." "That's good." Smiley lets out an almost imperceptible sigh of relief. Then she takes out the 2 lunch boxes. One is packed by a robot. One is homemade. She placed the lunchbox by the window. "I was thinking you just got injured, so I made you some more nutritious soup. You can try it and see if it suits your taste. If you don't like it." The cafeteria food has also been delivered. A hint of surprise flickered in Hansen's eyes. He studied Smiley carefully. Those eyes revealed genuine sincerity. Unlike the previous wardens, they were very clear eyes, carrying no hint of personal gain. His gaze softened further as he said, "Thank you." Then he carefully opened the lunchbox with his claws. It was a different kind of dish, and seen here before. Very fragrant. "I like it a lot." His voice carried a soothing, gentle quality like a spring breeze. Smiley flushed inexplicably. Across the way, the ignored mutant slapped the door with his wings. "Still talking? Are you trying to starve us to death?" Smiley snapped back to attention, turned and quickly placed the meal by the window. When she saw Mutin open his lunchbox, Hansen's gaze unconsciously drifted over, seeing him angrily slapping his bowl and muttering, "This crappy food again." Hansen quietly lowered his eyelids. So, only he had it. Of course, in the prison, Smiley's best impression was of Hansen. The others were like hard-to-please lords. She didn't want to invite trouble and risk another round of criticism. After delivering the meal, Smiley ate by herself in the office. From a young age, she has always been very independent. She left her patriarchal family early on. After all, she was a child who had endured hardship. So her cooking skills are actually quite good. Taking a bite, she felt somewhat moved. Delicious food truly has the power to heal the heart. She soon finished every last bit. She even wanted some dessert after the meal. She acted on the thought immediately, placing the ingredients into the robot's food compartment, adjusting all the parameters. In just 5 minutes, she received the high-temperature baked strawberry cream cake. Just one lick of the cream, and her eyes instantly lit up. The robot's cooking was incredibly delicious. She brought the small cake to let a few of the adults have a taste. Seeing Hansen's lunchbox completely empty, Smiley also felt a sense of validation and happiness. Perhaps because he was full and satisfied. Hansen was lying on the bed with his eyes closed. He only opened them when he heard Smiley arrive. "The warden has come to see you." Smiley responded with a smile, placing the small cake at the meal delivery slot. "Here's some dessert for you after the meal. If you like it, I can prepare it for you again next time." Hearing the word "you" in plural, Hansen understood that this time it wasn't just for him. However, he didn't feel unhappy about it. Instead, he was grateful that Smiley remembered them. This was something the previous warden had never considered. The warden is very thoughtful. After saying that, he asked the robot to bring the cake over. He lowered his head and sniffed it. Accidentally, a little got on his nose. He instinctively licked the cream off the tip of his nose. Only then did he remember Smiley at the door. A hint of embarrassment quickly flashed in his ice blue eyes. Fortunately, Smiley didn't see it clearly. She just thought the cake was too small. Suddenly feeling a bit embarrassed to present it, she awkwardly hurried to change the subject. "By the way, my name is Smiley. You can just call me by my name." The white lion lowered his head, hiding his warming ears, gently nodded his big head. Smiley put away the clean lunchbox and went to cell number 2. This time, Newton also ate everything clean. When he saw her coming, he snorted coldly again. Clearly still holding a bit of a grudge over the morning's incident, Smiley wasn't going to indulge him. She set down the cake, politely said it was a dessert after the meal, and left. Newton, seeing this, puffed up angrily. He had eaten everything clean too. Why did she only praise that short-legged beast, and not him? Angrily, he banged on the protective door again. Smiley stepped back. "What's wrong?" Newton said discontentedly. "Just one. If you don't want it, forget it." "Who said I don't want it?" Newton, afraid she would take the cake away, turned into human form and immediately put the cake in his mouth, then looked at her smugly. "Childish," Smiley muttered quietly, and Newton ate the sweets in his mouth, silently counting the number of conversations the two had just had. He barely felt a bit more at ease. Indeed, the ones mainly being troubled were still Newton and Jiangsha. Yeming didn't say much either. He just said thank you and disappeared back into the darkness. Smiley glanced out of the corner of her eye at cell number 3. The further in, the darker it got. Yemi could only be heard, not seen. She shifted her gaze back to Jiangsha. After the incident this morning, Jiangsha had become much more well-behaved. This time, after taking the small cake, he curiously licked it, then couldn't help but look at her. Will there be more next time? When Jiangsha was first born, he was quite weak, so he had always been a pampered young master. Even so, his mental power reached the 2 seconds level. He participated in that bug extermination operation. At that time, Yuten, Hansen, Yemi, Yanis were Althor. It was that operation that caused their mental powers to collapse. Jiangsha licked the cake lightly, taking small bites, but his eyes still looked eagerly at Smiley. Listening to Jiangsha's voice, she thought he was just a teenager, after all, yet trapped in prison, waiting for death to come. Her heart inexplicably softened. She couldn't help but take out another one. After all, she could make whatever she wanted to eat anytime outside. In the end, she couldn't show to obvious favoritism. Afterward, everyone received to each. Yanis doesn't really like sweets. He saw Smiley take it out and still had a bit reluctant look, somewhat amused. He said, "Just give me one. I don't eat much sweet food." Smiley happily took one back. "Then next time I'll make other less sweet desserts for you to try." "Thank you, Smiley. Can I just call you by your name?" Yanis's deep voice made one's heart itch just hearing it. But after a few times, Smiley had built up immunity and quickly came back to his senses, saying, "Okay." After hearing Yanis and Smiley's conversation, Hansen also didn't touch the extra small cake. When Smiley passed by, he awkwardly called out to Smiley, "The lunch you made today was delicious. I'm also full from the meal. I can't eat this small cake. Don't let it go to waste, you take it." Mutin listened, muttering in his heart, "Since when did General he have such a small appetite?" But based on the idol halo, he didn't say anything. Even when Smiley looked over, he swiftly stuffed that small cake into his mouth. Realizing what he had done, his face turned bright red. Under Smiley's somewhat speechless and amused gaze, he immediately transformed back to his original form and nonchalantly began grooming his feathers. Although sometimes Mutin could be quite annoying, it had to be said, he was truly beautiful. Smiley couldn't help but take a few more glances. But then he remembered the incident with covering the door in the morning and silently shifted his gaze away. After admiring the fluffy ones, Smiley returned to the office in a good mood. The daily working hours are from AM to PM. The warden's job has no days off all year round. But the salary is really high. And the work content is still very easy. No one controls what she wants to eat. She can eat whatever she wants. After dinner, Smiley curled up in the office to binge watch dramas, watching some men on TV pulling hair and fighting for favor. Endless competitive tactics, she exclaimed. How thrilling it was. Until it was almost time to get off work, Smiley went for another stroll around the prison. Seeing that the few adults had no instructions, she happily got off work. But after she left, a layer of ice slowly covered the robots in each room. This is Jiangsha's innate skill, able to temporarily block out the outside world. This is something only beastmen with high spiritual power possess. Whenever the skill is released, it means something important is about to be discussed. Yemi had his subordinates investigate. Smiley is an orphan. She doesn't belong to anyone behind the scenes. This time, coming to Black Abyss Star was her own initiative. The job came through a coincidental transfer. The Empire's job application has a special mechanism. Females are given priority. Smiley's spiritual power is F, fertility value 0. From the current situation, she doesn't pose any risk. Yanis chuckled softly after a while. So she's a useless female. But whether this was deliberately arranged or not, still needs further observation. Moreover, this female is not simple either. She can resist my Fox clan's innate skill. Perhaps the information you saw, Grand Prince, was also fabricated by someone with ulterior motives. Yanis, you shameless one. Using such a skill on a female. Seeing Jiangsha's flustered and angry appearance, Yanis curled his lips. It's only been a day. Jiangsha, you haven't been bribed by her, have you? Nonsense. Do you think I'm stupid? I just can't stand you seducing females like this. Seeing that the two were almost about to fight through the protective door, Hansen, somewhat displeased, shouted to stop them. Now is not the time to argue. Since we still cannot determine Smiley's specific identity, for the time being, everyone should not deliberately make things difficult for her during this period. In the past, Hansen would have turned a blind eye. That was because the previous wardens who came were tools sent by the Empire to monitor them. But this time is different. Smiley might be innocent. Regarding this, the few of them had no further objections. They tacitly agreed not to discuss the matter of Smiley's identity anymore. Just like that, a month passed peacefully. A jump ship landed on Black Abyss Star, welcoming the first visitor since Smiley took office. Smiley curiously walked toward the main gate. From afar, she saw a very tall young man, wearing a pair of gold-rimmed glasses. He looked very gentlemanly. The man introduced himself as Rio. He was here to find His Highness, Grand Prince Yemi. Smiley then realized that silent and reticent Black Panther was actually the Empire's eldest prince. However, the prison warden couldn't just let anyone in. Smiley contacted the Black Panther via communicator. Only after obtaining consent did she bring Rio to the cell. She even had the tact to leave them private space. After she left, Yemi immediately had Jiangxia use the ice sealing talent. Skill. Rio pulled out a small vial of potion from inside his coat. This was Dr. AI's research result. It had a chance to reduce mental breakdown value by 10 points. Yemi, as the Empire's eldest prince, because his own mental power was very high, had secretly established a research organization in his earlier years, specifically researching mental breakdown. Dr. AI was the chief professor among them, and Rio was the subordinate he had arranged to always handle such matters. Hearing the potion's effect, Yemi asked in a deep voice, "Has it been tested?" Rio hesitated for a moment, but still told the truth. "It hasn't been tested yet, but it's estimated to have a 20% chance of triggering mental breakdown." A flash of resolve passed through Yemi's deep green eyes. "Give it to me. Rather than waiting for death, it's better to take the initiative." Seeing him directly put the vial to his lips, the others all urged him to be cautious, vying to be the one to test the drug. A warm current flickered in Yemi's eyes. He knew everyone was trying to help him, but this was also the result of his careful consideration. Since Dr. AI sent Rio to deliver the potion, it proved this potion might be available for a short time later. Time is very difficult to manufacture. Then the person who drinks the medicine definitely cannot be Hansen. If a mental breakdown occurs, it will only hasten his death. And I have at most 1 year left to live. This year might not be enough for Dr. AI to research the drug. Might as well gamble for a chance at survival myself. If it really works, I can still find a way to delay Hansen's death. If it has no effect, then there are still the 3 with lower mental power than him. Time to wait for Dr. AI to continue the development. Thinking of this, Yemi bit open the medicine bottle cap and drank it in one gulp. The medicine had just entered his mouth, and he hadn't yet felt anything unusual in his body when he chased away Rio, who wanted to stay. After he left, Yemi's body had already started to feel a bit feverish. Then a muffled groan sounded in the quiet prison. "How is the Crown Prince? Is it effective?" Jiangxia, facing him, heard it first. Hearing the sound, Hansen knew this was the precursor to a mental breakdown. They didn't expect Yemi to run into that 20% probability. In cell number 3, only Yemi's voice could be heard, starting from muffled to painful moans gradually becoming clear. Then, successive collapsing sounds rang out in the room. Sounds of shattering, collisions and crashes emerged endlessly, almost the same as the scene during Hansen's last episode. Before long, the Black Panther began violently crashing against the protective door. It kept banging until its head bled, never ceasing. "Wake up!" Jiangxia tried to wake him up, but everyone also knew a beast that has lost its reason is hard to awaken, unless he immediately faints. On the other side, Smiley was seeing Rio off. From his mouth, she learned of the various heroic deeds of the Crown Prince. Watching Li Yue leave, she thought to herself, it turns out, it's not just Hansen. Yemi is also very impressive. Perhaps the others have also made many extraordinary contributions. But as things stand now, except for Mutant, the others are almost certainly facing a fatal end. Having spent a month with everyone, although not deep feelings, but thinking of such an outcome still makes one sigh with regret. Sigh. Can't think about it anymore. Feels like it's going to grow a brain. Smiley felt her head getting a bit itchy. She shook her head. Rather than dwell on this, better think about what to eat for dinner first. Thinking this, she went to the kitchen again. And in the corner, the green mushroom that had been thrown into the haystack stood up dizzily from the ground, then followed the scent, hopping toward the depths of the prison. Inside the prison, the Black Panther's self-harm behavior still hadn't stopped. Its throat emitted painful, frantic roars. heavily pounding on everyone's hearts. Hansen's eyes narrowed severely. Number 3. I order you to immediately use illegal means to knock His Highness unconscious. Unexpectedly, the number 3 butler robot, upon hearing the words, His Highness, the mechanical eye blinked rapidly twice, and then immediately went out. Right? This number 3 is pretending not to have heard. Jiamsha angrily bumped her head against the door. Hansen asked Mutant, can you try to get out of the prison? Mutant's invisibility talent sometimes allows the protective doors to overlook him, enabling him to pass through walls. But Mutant tried and helplessly resumed his form. Unable to pass through. Only from PM to M is it possible. This is the only time they can leave. After many attempts, just as everyone was at a loss, the sound of Black Panther fainting came. Jiangsha quickly pressed against the door and stared across. Hey, did the Crown Prince bump his head and get swollen? Why is there a red patch? But after blinking and looking again, it was gone. Not sure if it was just her eyes playing tricks, she shook her head and didn't have the heart to think too much about other things. She hurriedly called the number 3 robot to send the Crown Prince to the treatment pod, making sure he was still alive. Smiley only found out when delivering dinner that Yemi had also suffered a psychic breakdown. Holding the meal box, she looked at the rarely lit, but messy and unrecognizable room number 3. She felt very uneasy. Another psychic breakdown has occurred. Once it happens, there will be a second time. And it also means death is closer. Across the way, Jiamsha still doesn't know what worry is, just staring eagerly at the food box in Smiley's hands. Smiley, I'm hungry. Anyway, the eldest prince isn't here. I'll eat his food too. Smiley snapped back to reality and rolled her eyes in annoyance. But somehow, she couldn't really stay angry inside. Jiangsha is still so young. How could he have had a mental breakdown already? Thinking of this, she didn't have the heart to fuss over anything, so she took 2 food boxes and gave them to him. Jiangsha looked happily at the 2 meals in front of him. Smiley watched him eating heartily with satisfaction, feeling a sense of fulfillment like a parent feeding a child. Before making dinner, Smiley was quite hungry. But after delivering the dinner, the hunger in her stomach suddenly vanished without a trace. She looked at the dinner in front of her. In the end, she barely managed to drink a bowl of soup and didn't want to eat anymore. Right then, she suddenly thought of something. Opened her chip to check her personal account. Her salary plus the 2,000 star credit subsidy for magnetic females actually added up to over 20,000. Smiley stared at her balance for a long time, not even wanting to blink. Finally decided to buy some snacks as a reward for herself. After spending 1,000 new credits, she realized that orders over 1,500 qualified for free shipping. Picking and choosing among the add-on items. After seeing a yellow pet yarn ball, she inexplicably bought it. Then added some more snacks, finally meeting the delivery threshold. It was time to get off work. Smiley made another round inside the prison. But Yemi hasn't come out yet. Hansen told her not to worry. After all, she's still alive, isn't she? Smiley nodded. Humans are not grass or trees, who can be without emotion. After spending a month together, she didn't want any of the few adults in the prison to die. Unfortunately, it's only a matter of time. She still needs to adjust her mindset properly and adapt, and not spend too much thought on them, to avoid adding more sorrow when parting. Lying in bed at night, Smiley still couldn't help but search on the Starnet. Is there a cure for spiritual collapse above 50%? But everyone's conclusion was that death is inevitable. Smiley felt her heart sink as she read. She couldn't help but ask in a related post, is there no other way? Can so many people in the Empire only wait to die? Since the post was very popular, many people replied as soon as it was posted. One of them said, finding a high spiritual power female to soothe might have a chance. The threshold for spiritual connection is very high. It must be a sufficiently trusted partner with high spiritual power. Only then can healing be performed under safe conditions. And it's not necessarily effective. Smiley pondered these words. It's indeed very difficult. Because all these conditions must be met simultaneously. She let out a heavy sigh and logged off the StarNet. However, she didn't notice one sentence. I once saw a case in unofficial history. A female with a plant-type spiritual body healed. A level 2 spiritual power collapse powerhouse. Perhaps the female of the plant-type spiritual body might have a way. Too bad Smiley didn't see it. In the middle of the night, she dreamed of a bunch of little green mushroom people. These little green mushroom people didn't do anything. They just kept crying while looking at her. It directly annoyed her. Cry. Keep crying, and I'll stew you all into soup. One bite each. Get out of my dream quickly. Hearing this, the little mushroom people really stopped crying, biting their own little hands. I don't taste good. Don't eat me. Unless you promise. Otherwise, I won't come out. Oh, really? You dare threaten me? Believe it or not, I'll immediately dream up a pot of boiling water and throw you all in. Smiley was just threatening and thinking about it. Unexpectedly, a large hot pot really appeared in the dream. So considerate. Her eyes lit up. Staring at the little mushroom people, she let out a devilish laugh. The little mushroom people let out a frightened scream and disappeared very quickly. Immediately after, her head hurt, and she suddenly woke up from her sleep. At the same time, a clear, pitiful crying sound, similar to that of a 4 or 5-year-old child, reached her ears. Oh my God, am I seeing a ghost? Smiley, scared, sat up with a start and immediately turned on the light, looking at the glaringly green, palm-sized mushroom at the foot of the bed. She felt a bit doubtful about life. Why does this green mushroom look so much like the one in her dream? Could it really have come out of her dream? Watching the little mushroom, tears soaked her bedsheet. Smiley's eyebrow twitched. Stop crying. The green mushroom reflexively stopped its tears, but its body twisted to the side a bit. Smiley could sense from it a heavy aura of grief, resentment, and grievance. All right. I won't be harsh with you anymore. And I won't eat you either. Her voice softened. Hearing this, the mushroom finally stopped turning its side to her. Seeing its such human-like actions and movements, Smiley found it amusing in her heart. She couldn't help but ask, "Where did you come from? How are you in my room?" As soon as the words fell, a pitiful, grievance-filled voice was heard. "Master, I am your spiritual body. Of course, I have to follow you." This voice came from within her mind. The crying earlier also seemed to have come from inside her head. But could someone with an F-grade spiritual power even have a spiritual body? Smiley was utterly shocked. The green mushroom unhappily retorted, "Master's spiritual power is definitely not F-grade. But what specific grade it is, it didn't know either." Hearing this, Smiley was even more surprised. Could the change in spiritual power be related to her transmigrating into a book? Forget it, this matter isn't that important. Just as she was about to lie down and continue sleeping, another sob came from her mind. Ooh. Master still hasn't given me a name. Smiley thought for a moment. It looks just like a poisonous mushroom. Then let's call you Zhao Du. Little mushroom was happy to have a name. It finally obediently returned to the sea of consciousness. The next day, Smiley sat on the bed with sleepy eyes. She suddenly thought of something and called out, "Little Poison. I'm here." The voice in her mind responded quickly. Only then did Smiley confirm that last night wasn't a dream after all. She really had a spiritual entity. And it was a green mushroom. But Smiley wasn't too surprised or found it unique. After all, the original female lead in the book had a snow lotus as her spiritual entity. It wasn't an animal either. Although it wasn't as stunning as the original female lead's snow lotus, the plump, fleshy mushroom was still quite cute. Thinking this, she pinched the soft, squishy mushroom flesh. And only then, satisfied, did she get out of bed. After a night of recovery, when she went to deliver breakfast, Yemi had already recovered. Today she had specifically made sandwiches instead. They had meat, eggs, and vegetables. This was also the first time Yemi ate food she personally made. However, Smiley discovered that Yemi was actually a picky eater. The vegetables were all left in the bowl. When she retrieved the lunchbox, she couldn't help but say, "A balanced diet of meat and vegetables is good for your health." Unexpectedly, the black leopard silently protested without a sound. Jiangsha, who still wanted more, snorted. "Smiley, next time, give me the crown prince's portion too. I'm not picky. I like everything you make." Smiley could only feel a wave of helplessness. The prison lunchboxes were not small. She didn't dare to actually give Jiangsha 3 portions to eat. Smiley looked at the pitch-black cell, number 3, just thinking that if Black Panther didn't like it, she wouldn't need to bother next time. Then she heard Yemi's voice come through. "It's very delicious. I'll finish it next time." Hearing this, Smiley didn't say anything more. Passing by cell number 2, she stole a glance at Li Ning. Lately, she felt, Mutin had become much quieter. At first, he even liked having Dark Spirit look for him. Now, he hardly speaks. ORCs have relatively strong perception. Mutin naturally noticed Smiley's gaze. He awkwardly turned his head away, revealing a slender and elegant profile curve, while also observing Smiley's reaction. Seeing the obvious amazement in Smiley's eyes, he raised his neck even higher. Only after Smiley left the prison did he twist his neck, stretch his wings, and relax his body. After leaving, Smiley was now picking flowers in the garden. In this high-tech era, express delivery is very fast. The package from yesterday was delivered by a robot at the door today. After bringing it back to the office, Smiley couldn't wait to start organizing her snacks. She took out a portion intending to share with the few adults in the prison. As for the remaining pet yarn balls, after some thought, she figured she should give them to Jiangsha, because Tucson resembles the big cat at his friend's house. Thinking this, Smiley immediately packed up and headed to the prison. It wasn't long after breakfast. The various beasts were currently busy with their own affairs. Considering the adults' living needs, the prison's various facilities are all customized according to everyone's preferences. Hansen's room has quite a lot of exercise equipment. Daily workouts are essential. Mutin is more concerned with beauty, so there are many mirrors in his room. He often uses a comb to groom his feathers when idle. Occasionally, he also reads some mechanical books. Yemi has night vision. He prefers staying in dark environments to read. He often checks the updates on the Star Network. Jiangsha is a pampered young master from a wealthy family, so he only needs to eat well, drink well, and play well. He likes lying in the snow piles inside the prison in low-temperature environments. Yanis used to be a space lane walker. He lived through many days of constant fear. Now, comfort is his priority. Soaking in hot springs, dismantling flowers. He does whatever brings him enjoyment. But after 2 years of this day-out life, anyone would find it boring. Jiangsha rolled over in the snow pile and sighed. "I really want to go out. I didn't want it so much before. But now, thinking about Smiley being outside the prison, he really wants to play with her too." Mutin looked at 2 feathers he had shed. In a bad mood, he sneered. "You can only think about it. With your current mental state, there's no way you're getting out." Jiangsha was unhappy. He couldn't help but opened his chip to run a test. The collapse value was 68%. A few points higher than 2 years ago. He couldn't be bothered to argue with Mutin, buried in the snowdrift again, being a lonely Tucson. Just then, footsteps were heard outside the prison. Smiley walked in with a smile. "Today, I've everyone some fresh snacks." Jiangsha couldn't stay seated in his chair. He couldn't help but walk to the protective door and crane his neck to look. But the distance was too far. Only the sound could be heard, but not the person. Smiley took snacks from the spatial pouch and distributed them to everyone. Hansen came down from the climbing wall, his gaze gentle as he expressed thanks. Although he didn't really like snacks, it had been over 2 years since he last had snacks from the outside, so he couldn't help feeling a bit nostalgic. The prison had changed several wardens. Only Smiley had thought of these things. Mutin looked at the snack bag and couldn't help asking, "Did you buy it on the Star Net?" "Yeah. Why? Hearing his words, there was something a bit strange about them. Smiley also showed a hint of confusion between his brows. Mutin's eyes flickered slightly as he shook his head. Arriving at cell number 3. It was still pitch dark inside. Only a thank you was heard, close to the ear. Looking up, Yemi had actually walked to the protective door of her own accord. This was the second time Smiley had clearly seen his appearance. A massive body paired with emotionless green eyes. It looked enough to make one's scalp tingle. Yemi glanced up at Smiley, then silently retreated back into the darkness. Smiley secretly breathed a sigh of relief and went to Jiangxi's cell. Compared to the darkness of cell 3, cell 4 was completely the opposite. The room has an automatic snowfall program. It looks completely white. Smiley, you bought us snacks. Haven't had them in a long time. Jiangxi seemed to sigh with emotion. Smiley snapped back to reality and crouched down. Not just snacks. I also bought you a little toy. Little toy. Hearing these words, all the beasts in the prison quietly perked up their ears. Even Yemi in the darkness was no exception. While Yanis had more look of watching a good show, Jiangxi's eyes instantly widened. I'm not a pet. Why would I need any toy? Although he thought Smiley was good looking, with a good temper, kind and gentle, but treating him like a pet was absolutely unacceptable. He was so angry his breathing became heavy. Smiley felt a bit guilty from what he said. Sorry, I didn't mean to treat you like a pet. I'll take it away now. Don't be angry, okay? As she spoke, she prepared to put the yarn ball back into the space pouch. But when she lifted it, the yarn ball swayed under her palm. She saw Jiangxi's head tilt along with it twice. She tried moving it again by the string. Jiangxi's golden eyes narrowed. This expression was exactly the same as a friend's big cat when it sees something interesting. But since Jiangxi was being stubborn, she couldn't force it. Smiley somewhat regretfully put away the yarn ball. After the yellow yarn ball disappeared, Jiangxi's pupils finally returned to normal, only realizing belatedly that he had actually been controlled by a tiny little yarn ball. This absolutely cannot be. His claws unconsciously scratched the snow twice. Thinking of that yarn ball, he said, with renewed ferocity. Just a tiny yarn ball. Since you bought it, then I'll reluctantly accept it. He was determined to see what magic this yarn ball possessed. Smiley felt a wave of speechlessness. She suddenly felt a bit mischievous, and said, with feigned consideration, "It's fine. If you don't like it, I'll just take it away." No need for the grown-up to force himself. Seeing Jiangxi's claws scratching the snow faster, she continued self-reflecting. It's all my fault for not noticing the grown-up's preferences. I'll never presume to buy these things and make you angry again. Jiangxi's tail swished a couple of times with some agitation. His voice couldn't help but grow louder. I never said I didn't like it. So the grown-up does like it. Then I'm relieved. Seeing Jiangxi, flustered and angry, almost digging up the ground, she finally stopped teasing him and threw the yarn ball through the small window. It traced an arc through the air. Jiangxi instinctively chased after it. But halfway, he pretended to be calm and walked towards his ice and snow chair. Only the corner of his eye couldn't help but watch that toy until it landed. Robot no. 4 thought there was an extra piece of trash in the room. It scanned it and then produced cleaning tools, ready to tidy up. Jiangxi's pupils suddenly contracted. No longer caring about face, he swiftly ran over and snatched the yarn ball in his mouth. Seeing Smiley was still at the door, he felt embarrassed again and spat it out. He could only vent his anger on the clueless robot. Get lost. Don't let me see you today. Robot no. 4 didn't understand why. It could only let out an "oh" and automatically found a corner to go into standby mode. Young people have quite a temper. Smiley helplessly shook her head. She didn't linger any longer and arrived at the door of cell number 5, Yanis's cell. She handed in the snacks and the flowers she had just picked this morning. Yanis walked elegantly toward the window, lightly sniffing. Thank you. Very fragrant and beautiful. A low, magnetic, and husky voice. Smiley almost couldn't stop her hand from trembling and letting go of the flowers. Fortunately, after going through this period of time, her composure had greatly improved, so she didn't make a fool of herself. She blinked and looked at the robot behind Yanis, gesturing for it to come and take the flowers. But the robots in each cell primarily follow their master's commands. Number 5 didn't move. Yanis curled the corner of his lips, telling No. 5 to come over. He didn't continue testing Smiley. The initial unfamiliarity and wariness in his eyes relaxed a bit. However, he still felt this female was not simple, quietly winning over, one by one, the trust of several people in the prison. Although we haven't found out who is behind her yet, but with the person right under our own eyes, the true face will eventually be revealed sooner or later.